want to start by pointing out that our administrator, Pam Hyde, is very interested in this topic. At the request of Secretary Sebelius, she chairs a committee of principals, which means the important people across the federal government, 14 of them, and they're about to reconvene that group in the next month or so. And it includes people like the Surgeon General of the United States, so it's a very kind of heavy hitter group, and they're responsible under the STOP Act, which has already been mentioned, for coordinating federal activities. And there are activities that at the Department of Justice, at the Indian Health Service, at the Centers for Disease Control, Department of Education is very engaged, and so on. So just wanted to sort of help you to understand that this is for SAMHSA, this is a major issue, and it's something that our administrative acts very strongly. This is not preventing underage drinking, as I'm sure you know from your high school experience, is a challenging thing. We've actually made some progress. It went down considerably between 1979, when all of you weren't alive, until 1982. And I guess I'd have to do some calculations. Some of you weren't alive either. But since then, it has kind of flattened out. We've had some minor declines, but we haven't had much progress in preventing underage drinking in recent years. And so that's why I think all of us here are especially interested in hearing today what you have to say, because we all need help in figuring out how to move forward on this and push these rates down. This is not a new problem. Plato mentions it in the 4th century BC in one of the dialogues. The young men at the academy couldn't get started too early one morning because they got drunk the night before and were hungover. So this has been a challenge for a long time. And I'd like to share a little story with you that I think captures it. I had the privilege of traveling with the Surgeon General to Wyoming several years ago, and he was talking to a group of young people at a school which will be unidentified, and let's just say that he wasn't getting very much. Everybody was polite, but they all looked as if they were snoozing. And until one kid said, "Hey, are you the dude on the cigarette packs?" And he said yes, at which point everybody paid attention. So it's really hard, I think, sometimes for people my age and the Surgeon General's age to engage youth on this issue. Again, that's why we're interested in hearing what you have to say today. Just a couple of things that we've been doing. I mentioned the Surgeon General. We worked with the Surgeon General and with the National Institutes on Health to develop a call to action to prevent and reduce underage drinking. It was released in 2007, but the science is still very, very good. And I'm going to pass these around. If you're interested, you can go to the Surgeon General's website, and they're available. And I think the important thing about this resource for all of you to know is that for somebody who wants to read a 50-page analysis of the science, we have a very thorough, well-done document. But we also have shorter, more accessible guides for communities, for educators, and for families. So if you're not aware of these resources, they have the approval of the Surgeon General, and they're very good. Resources. The second thing is,
I'll say real quickly, it should be in your packet. You've got a list of resources. These documents are listed in here as well.
So you can just take a look at them, and we also have the guides in Spanish. So. The second thing I'd like to mention is that there's a website called StopAlcoholAbuse.gov that is jointly supported by all of the agencies in the Interagency Committee, and that's a good place to go for general information. It also refers you to all of the various agencies and their products. And then finally, we have been here at SAMHSA supporting town hall meetings for the last 6 or 7 years. And we have had on preventing underage drinking. We've done that in 7,000 communities across the United States. The interesting thing is that we only make little grants of $500 to communities to do that, which means that if you know anything about federal grant making, which you probably don't, usually people are expecting thousands of dollars, not hundreds. So the first thing that tells me is that there's great interest around the country in this subject. And it also tells me that if in your communities, if you wanted to work with, if there's a coalition that works on alcohol and drug prevention issues, and you went to them and said, we would like to have a town hall meeting on this subject, even if there isn't a SAMHSA grant, you could probably do it fairly cheaply and at least begin a conversation. And I know that they would want to have youth involved. In fact, it would be great if some of those were driven by youth. So that I think that's something you might want to consider. And then the final point I want to make is that while it's a very small percentage, it's always, and our focus is on preventing underage drinking, it's important to remember that some young people get in trouble with alcohol early and young and become addicted to it and need treatment and actually need to get into recovery. And that does exist. And so while I know that isn't the focus of this morning, I think it's always important to remember that, and that's another issue that we work on here at SAMHSA, promoting a recovery-oriented system for those who need it. Mark, thank you for the opportunity to give a little overview here. I apologize, I'm going to have to leave after listening to all of your comments on underage drinking, but I do look forward to hearing what all of you have to say, and anything we can take home to the committee. I can assure you, in fact, we have a meeting next week, and I'll pass it along to the interagency committee.
Steve, thanks very much.
Underage drinking has become one of the most prevalent issues facing youth today. Although organizations such as SAMHSA have made valiant efforts to alleviate and eliminate this problem, our 4-H delegates have found a few problems and come up with a few solutions for this problem. We would like to thank you very much for letting us speak to you today.
Picture this: a family coming together for one of the most horrifying things one can, the burying of a young member of that family. Shockingly, according to the NIAAA, there are around 5,000 deaths from alcohol-related accidents in youth around the nation. Another staggering fact is that 10.4 million adolescents aged 12 to 20 years old have confessed to drinking at least once. Another shocking statistic is that gender differences between males and females are very slim. Now, with that in mind, we have around 8.1 million females that have actually confessed to having at least one drink over a one-year period. Information on this kind of information is actually kind of hard to find on males, but percentage-wise, they usually lead in consumption, binge, and heavy drinking. Finally, we'd like to say that by age 18, around 70% of Americans have confessed to drinking at least one spirit.
So, along with what he said, we've also found some inconsistent laws in the federal system, such as one law says that anybody under the age of 21 is not allowed to consume any alcohol. It's illegal. Yet another law says that parents can go out to the store and buy alcohol and bring it home and drink it with their kids. And in multiple states, it's actually legal for parents to bring their children to a bar and drink with them there. Another issue with underage drinking is behavior issues. A lot of times it'll cause problems in school, crimes, and anger issues. We do have some good news though, as 57% of American youth do not drink, leaving 43% of youth who do. But the question we would kind of like to ask is, why does America let its youth grow up and not continue this great nation's heritage?
As youth procrastination, we have found several loopholes in the laws and enforcements pertaining to underage drinking.
The first loophole that we have found was that no action was taken to change the social norms of underage drinking. A solution that we have found
is that we could use social norm campaigns in order to educate the youth, their parents, their teachers, tribal members, as well as community members about the adverse effects of underage drinking. Also, a second loophole we have found is that there is a lack of awareness among the community about underage drinking. To promote community awareness, we would like to use the media. We feel that this is a very strong method and that it could reach many people. We'd like to use different sources such as the radio, local newspapers, school websites, and other sources.
In addition to these, policy and practice of the laws are inconsistent. Solutions include increasing consistency among lawmakers and law enforcement, as well as consistency and discipline among high school students related to alcohol offenses. A major way to make an impact on the community is by local newspapers. I know from a personal experience. Lieutenant Kevin Carley of South Dakota Highway Patrol released the following information of this accident that occurred east of Martin, South Dakota. Robin Novotny of Martin, South Dakota, and Bradley Schultz of Gordon, Nebraska. Robin Novotny was heading eastbound on Highway 18 when she lost control of the slope-covered roadway and was struck nearly head-on by a tractor-trailer driven by Bradley Schultz. Novotny was pronounced dead on the scene. No injuries were obtained by Schultz. This was a day that was impacting my whole community, and I will never forget. Because in the picture, you can clearly see them pulling Novotny, or my mom, out of the wreckage. In many ways, this is very wrong. Our last point we would like to focus on is the point of lack of education on alcohol through all ages, cultures, and ethnic backgrounds.
So the solution that we came up with to solve this problem uses 4-H as a structure to administer the prevention, awareness, and education to communities, states, and regions across the nation. So we can achieve this by creating a National 4-H Alcohol Prevention Council, which would be dedicated to preventing underage alcohol consumption. So the structure that we came up with is a 4-level structure, starting with the county level. Advocates from each county that shows interest would select volunteers to represent on a state board. From there, the state board would select a representative to serve on a regional council, which would then pick 2 people, 1 adult and 1 youth member, to serve on a national level so that the information can be spread throughout the nation easily. This structure is an existing structure that is used by the Cooperative Extension Agreement, which is used by 4-H through land-grant universities. And the funding that would be needed to support a program such as this could follow in the same path as does the funding for 4-H.
The short-term goals of the National 4-H Alcohol Prevention Council would be to review and create a new curriculum dedicated to the prevention of alcohol. Youth will have a voice in the council by having youth delegates on this national council, so they will have their voices and their opinions addressed in these meetings. They will also support community involvement. Communities will be dedicated to consistency, keeping their programs consistent, and promoting enthusiasm. We want to get the public excited about these programs. We want older youth, as well as 4-H members, to be able to reach out to those members of the community and help other youth their age. This way, we will address problems with all youth, in all ages, all ethnicities, and all cultures. The previously addressed gaps that we've already talked about will be filled by using these programs. 4-H is the ideal gateway to initiate a thorough prevention program.
To conclude, our committee, as well as 4-Hers everywhere, hope that our plan and information on underage drinking in America, that we can help you with it. As teenagers, we witness underage drinking every day and hope that our actions can help to solve this problem. As the weekend approaches, we all know that many teenagers will go out to drink or take their first drink. We know that underage drinking will always be one of the biggest problems faced by teenagers. So we hope with the help of the National 4-H Alcohol Prevention Council, 4-H as well as youth will be able to assist in reducing the percentage of underage drinkers in America. Please feel free to ask questions. We really appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you today. As we travel home, we will take all of our ideas back to our communities. 4-H is going to help change America one underage drinker at a time. Thank you. We'd like to open the floor to any questions or comments that you have.
Hi, it's really a great presentation. Thank you for coming all the way here and sharing that with us. It's great to have your perspective. I'm always curious to hear about, what your experiences have been. Have you been exposed to any kind of prevention messages in your communities and schools? And what are your reactions to those programs or those messages? And what are your peers' reactions to those programs and messages? And just whoever feels like speaking from the folks who are standing or from the rest of the crew, that would be great too.
Corey has a really good answer for that, actually, so I'll let him take this one.
It's not really an answer, it's more like a story that happened several years ago. We had back at home, we live in a small town, and really there's nothing to do on the weekends. So a group of high school seniors decided that they were going to go riding around on the back roads and drinking. Well, the driver was also drinking, and when they came to a stop sign to cross the highway, the driver didn't see him. And this group of senior boys were in the back of the pickup truck. And when they crossed, there was a larger, I don't know if it was a semi-truck or just a larger vehicle, that actually ran into the vehicle, into their truck, and killed all of the seniors that were in there. And now the only way to remember that is, now on the side of the road there are about 5 or 6 white wooden crosses. And that event right there still has a major impact on our community. Not a day goes by that people don't talk about them or remember what they did and remember their actions throughout their high school career. And the sad part is that they died young before they were even able to graduate high school.
And how obviously we have personal stories and testimonies, how these prevention in schools and education, but also we just wanted to say that our primary focus for creating the National 4-H Prevention of Alcoholic Council is education of our youth. There's programs in schools now such as DARE and other alcohol and drug abuse resistant programs, and those mainly focus on the younger education, elementary school, but we are trying to also keep it consistent. And once you are in high school, junior high, you still have that influence on alcohol and drug prevention, to where it's not as strong as the temptation, because that way you're able to keep it's still fresh, and we also incorporate things of this that make it interesting, such as some schools may do programs such as the beer goggles, to where you make it seem interesting and fun in a way that you can also understand the serious and aspects of it. So are there any further questions?
Just a couple of, I'm sorry, a couple of comments. One is that you may be interested, you're quite right about the inconsistency of law, and you may or may not know that there's a historic reason for that at the end of Prohibition, each state was given the right to basically determine its own alcohol policy. And so when the federal law came in and insisted that 21 be the minimum legal drinking age, there are variations in the way that was implemented in the states, and it is probably not going to change legally in the short run. That is there because recently there was a campaign to try to lower the drinking age to 18 by some groups. So I would say that probably in the short run, the minimum, which we do not support, incidentally, we we support strongly. We support the 21 drinking age strongly. But in the short run, probably the federal law is going to stay as it is, and so any changes on consistency have to be done on a state-by-state basis. The second comment that I'd make is that you've been talking about preventing alcohol problems and preventing underage drinking interchangeably. And may I suggest that you think a little bit about with adults who are over 21 who are it's legal to drink, that you might want to think there, if you want to tackle that issue, and that whether you do or not is entirely up to you, you might want to think about saying that what you're trying to do there is prevent binge drinking or excessive drinking or something like that, or alcohol misuse, because when it's a legal thing to do, frankly, our experience has been that you'll be more effective if people don't think that you're kind of trying to prohibit drinking all over. We tried prohibition and it was not a big success. So I think being careful in one's language makes a lot of sense. But now the question, one of my concerns is that some of our media level prevention programs are maybe not as age specific as they should be. One of the fellows who just spoke talked about prevention programs being out there a lot for younger kids. Are there good prevention messaging, and are you getting training in school around alcohol issues as high school students? And if you are they effective? And if they aren't, how can they be more effective?
First, I'd like to comment on your comments and reiterate that the National 4-H Alcohol Prevention Council would be definitely in it for the long run. So we'd be able to look into coordinating legislative changes throughout all the states, and this is something that 4-H will be invested in. To answer the question about media campaigns in the high school and the older youth, I know from my personal experience, we have a campaign called The Truth. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but they have posters all over their school and oftentimes make announcements throughout the schools, especially around times like homecoming and prom and graduation, when drinking problems are more prevalent. I think Evan has something to say to me. I guess not. Does that answer your question?
First, I wanted to say thank you for your presentation and all the stories that you've shared. I'm a 4-H mom, so I know that the structure and the work that 4-H does is phenomenal. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are and what you would say to somebody. Why will the 4-H structure be a unique structure in terms of placing some of these efforts there? What's unique about it, and why will it be more effective? And second, the other challenge is a lot of young people, I think, have some general awareness and education, but what do you think needs to be done to move from awareness and education to really changing behavior and actions?
To answer the first part of the question, I think that 4-H, we saw 4-H as a good vehicle because, all of us are from different states in the United States. 4-H and the Cooperative Extension program is so not international, but is so spread throughout the community, and it's already in so many places that it seems that, and since we are the people who would be implementing this plan, that we can bring it back and use it in our own 4-H groups. And since 4-H is so universal, I guess, it would serve as a good, and it already gets funding, and it already has activities, and it already is trying to improve the livelihood of youth and trying to encourage, living safely and preventing this kind of thing. So we saw that they had the resources and the ability to do this. And for the second part of the question, could you repeat the second part of the question?
It's trying to get at, we have a lot of information, there are a lot of messages out there, but what's going to help young people shift to really make decisions not to drink excessively or during period if they're underage?
Yeah. I think part of that has to do with the campaign against social norms, sort of trying to change those social norms, small steps at a time, with campaigns that are more focused on changing the view of alcohol than actually changing the use of alcohol. Instead of focusing on getting kids instead of trying to get people to not drink, although they know it's wrong, trying to get people to just not necessarily view it as something that they would want to do anyway. So like a campaign that we're not sure how it would work, at first, but I think that if given more time and could be looked into more, to really find a campaign that could voice changing social norms and changing the sort of like the feeling of our generation that it's this wrong thing, but it's okay. Like it's wrong. Like a lot of people really like. There was something on our thing that said that 90% of the youth really do think that it's not necessarily worth the consequences. Yet 43% of them still use it. And so I think that it's not necessarily about getting kids to know that it's wrong, because I think that a lot of kids do know that it's wrong, but instead getting them to not want to take the risk and not want to think it's cool. Does that answer your question?
That's great, thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Okay. Can I ask one question real quick, Rose? I just wanted to find out, because our programs do community-based partnerships with other non-traditional partners that are not required, and I think that your council would be an excellent example of someone, if a community wanted to work around this issue, that we could partner with you on a local level. And I was wondering, how do you best see people who want to approach you as a partner contacting you and filtering down into your local communities where you do have 4-H presence?
Well, to answer that question, we were talking the council that is created for this prevention, at the regional levels, how there's a representative from each level. They would have meetings to figure out which state and community organizations would probably be most interested in doing this, and target them out. And then also, as well as national organizations, for guidance and as well as support, because if they would have that, and it shows, 4-H is becoming involved with the prevention of underage drinking, and for example, say JCPenney. JCPenney is sponsoring them. That shows other major companies and sponsorships, and they want to become involved. They want to become a part of, helping our youth, not just 4-H, but our youth as a whole, be more aware of the effects and things of underage drinking. So does that answer your question?
I think so. So what you're recommending is that at a regional level, if we have a community, say in Iowa or in South Dakota, who does want to partner with you, they would contact the regional coordinator, and then that would somehow filter up to your national presence on this issue.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.